Bonjour, peeps. Bonjour, peeps. Welcome to, oh my gosh, I'm kind of tired. So I'm going to try that again. It's going to be take two. Bonjour, peeps. Good morning, peeps. This is Neshi Lokatz, and welcome to Sacred. Oh my gosh, how did I do that? I was going to say Sacred Hoop. That's the name of my old business. Star Nation's organization's main fan page. Wow. I think I need some more caffeine. Good morning, motto. What was that all about? I don't know. Other than a little sleep deprived. Yeah. I had considered, good morning, Margaret. Hey, Margaret, I'm going to work on that PayPal thing right after the show. All right. So, yeah. It's so much fun when you have family members that have the flu and you're the only one that's kind of not sick, because I'm not. I'm not sick at all. I'm tired, but I'm not sick. So Paul's down with the flu, and I'm working like mad not to have Mom catch it, because I think that would be kind of bad, right? So the smell of my house yesterday was purification in the atomizer. And good morning, Julie. And today it's going to be all about thieves in there. So it smells good, but yeah, I'm sure you guys can relate. I'm sure some of you have been through the same thing. You know, that flu is not, I didn't know you could catch the flu in the middle of summer. Well, you know, when I was a kid, the flu was basically during the winter time, and not so much anymore. My goodness. So I definitely have caffeine this morning. Caffeine. I brewed a full pot of coffee. Usually I only do a couple of cups, like 4 or 5 cups, something like that. And that is good to go for the morning. And hey, Stephanie's joining us too. So yeah, you know, it's kind of funny, isn't it? How when you're tired, how some old things from the past can kind of pop into your language. I was going to say, welcome to Sacred Hoop. I haven't done business or anything in Sacred Hoop, my former business, in, I don't know, maybe 3 years, something like that. Oh my gosh. Only goes to prove that, hey, we're all human, right? I tell you what, at 3:00 this morning, when I was helping Paul, you know, I realized that this is the part about through sickness and health. And he's been there for me 100%. So it was, yeah, we need to take care of that guy. My guy. You know, he and we've been together for, well, we got married in 79, and we met in 78. So we've been together for a long time, since we were 19. Yeah, it's been a long time. So this morning, when I did the card draw, I have to say it was nice just to sit down in a very quiet moment and get connected to Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky, to bring myself all into one spot and ask my spiritual team, what is the energy that we need to know about today for our highest good, and that we can share with others. And, you know, we did switch out the cards. We're going to be using the Sacred Geometry Oracle deck for a while anyway. And it's by Francine Hart, and it was published in 2001. And this was the only Oracle deck with sacred geometry at the time that I know of. There may have been others, but this is the one that caught my eye at, it was a goddess retreat. And you know how somebody always has books for sale, right? At those things. And so this book was there. So this morning, what's the card draw for this particular book? I usually draw 1 card, but with this deck, 2 is most appropriate, because it's the balance between thought and emotion the balance between male and female. And so it pulls us into the energy field of unity rather than polarization. Does that make that sound, son? Yeah. Let's see. Motto is saying, sending you and your household good thoughts of healing and wellness. Thank you, Motto. Oh, yes. Thank you so much. It's yesterday, Paul slept a lot. And I was getting him up to drink water, and he wasn't very hungry, but I gave him some broth and watching his temperature go up. And his temperature finally broke early this morning. It was after 3, after that last time I got up with him. Yeah. So, that second night, and what is it with nighttime? When we're not feeling well, why does it seem like in the evening that it's worse? Does anybody notice that? I don't know if there's anything scientific behind it or not, but it certainly is. It has. Yeah. Thank you, Margaret. She's saying healing energy too. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. Paul hardly ever gets sick. I think the last time he had the flu and was down like this was probably, I don't know, late 90s maybe. It's been a long, long time. He hardly ever gets sick. He's got a strong constitution. Usually I'm the one, and he's the one taking care of me. So anyway, so here's the first card. This is the Dodecahedron. And the Dodecahedron, how I always remember this is it looks kind of like a little house, doesn't it? It kind of has the shape of a house. It's got the roof and the sides. Yeah. That's how I remember the dodecahedron. And the dodecahedron is one of the 5 platonic solids. And when I first started teaching sacred geometry, and I had taken in the information and had started applying it as much of it as I could to my daily life. And I was finding ways to remember how to remember some of these names, and what they do. And so with the dodecahedron, it's about ether and spirit. I use the platonic solids when I set up a mini medicine wheel. They hold, I have platonic shapes. I was going to bring them with me. I couldn't remember them. They're down at the house. And they're little, and I'll bring them tomorrow. But I use them on my altar, on a altar, when I set it up to hold the cardinal points. And the dodecahedron goes into the center of that because it represents spirit. And at first, for me, because of my culture, the Native American culture, I found it, I'm used to the 4. And to add the 5th element in there, even like with feng shui, I was always kind of, how does this work again? Where does that 5th element go? And so just a few years ago, one of the Mayan elders down in Mexico, they had their conclave, their annual gathering. And many of the Mayan elders that are in leadership positions had come together to talk about the 5th element. And it was just a few years ago that they formally recognized the 5th element, and the 5th element being spirit. Some people call it prana, some people call it ether. The Mayans call it spirit. And when I read that, I thought, you know what? I understand that. That feels good to me. That resonated with me. And so with the platonic solids, the dodecahedron represents spirit. And so that's why I put it in the center of my altar. Yeah. I'll bring those tomorrow. I'll put them on my list of things to bring up with me tomorrow, and I'll show you my little set. They were gifted to me by one of my students years ago, and I've used them a lot. So here's what Francine says about the dodecahedron. All right, so she says that the platonic solids, there's 5 of them, right? And she goes to explain how they're measured, because they are. They have each has equal angles, edges of equal length, and equal faces, and each would fit within a sphere. All right, so the dodecahedron on its edges would fit inside a circle, a sphere. These shapes hold cosmic wisdom within their structure. The dodecahedron has 12 equal 5-sided faces. All right, so here we go. 5-sided face, and there are 12 of them. She says that this embodies divine thought or will and has the archetype of life and abundance made visible. It's known as heaven, ether, prana, and is female. And I'm going to add in there, because the Mayan elders added this long after she published her book, and that is spirit. This card connects us with divine thought and with the realization of the universality of oneness. Okay, so here we go. We're back to the vibration, the frequency of oneness, especially in our thoughts. You know, when I was reading this information, I was thinking about how many times have I said and have heard that Earth is a school of duality. And we souls, we work very diligently in remembering that we're working toward wholeness, toward the one, right? And if this shape, the platonic solid dodecahedron shape, is about divine thought and represents oneness, then I'm thinking maybe we need to change our language a bit, change our thoughts around that. That the earth teaches us to come back to wholeness, to remember the oneness, rather than spending our energy and our thoughts on the duality, is to spend our energy and our thoughts on the wholeness, the unity, the oneness. And I know that we talk about it, we mention it, it's in prayers, and it's all good. But I really do believe that when we make that mental shift, and we bring the head and the heart together back into that wholeness, is that Earth doesn't necessarily have to be about duality. It can teach us about wholeness and the oneness. But when we put us all together, everything under creation here on Earth, and I'm going to use the word Ma'una. Ma'una is the word, the Ho-Chunk word for creator, and the translation of it is Earth Maker, creator of all things. Okay, so if we look at it from that point of view, is that when we're here all together and we recognize that we're all related, that we're already in the oneness. We don't have to spend a lot of time on the duality. We can see it. We can acknowledge maybe it's, that it's here, but it's to teach us about the wholeness, not to spend a lot of time on the duality. Does that make sense? How do you guys feel about that? Motto saying focusing on the similarities instead of the differences shifts the perspective of duality. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Exactly. And for me, I am always consciously aware of where I place my energy. I call it energy allocation. Where am I allocating it? In all different ways, all different forms. So the past 2 days, my energy has been allocated primarily with Paul and with Mom, making sure about their health. But it's also allocated a portion of it to the magazine because we're under a deadline. And so I break it down that way. But my energy allocation, where does it go? There's some things that are not a priority that I need to set aside or set down, and come back to when my energy can be allocated to it. Yeah. Yes, it's a paradigm shift. Deanna is saying that. Yes, it is a paradigm shift. It is. I do believe that when we remember how to hold the frequency of the fourth and fifth dimension, that we're no longer holding it in the third dimension, that this paradigm shift, this shift of thought and belief is so much easier. It's no longer this huge leap. It's a shift. It's a shift in paradigm. I love that. I like the word paradigm. It's a good one. All right. So one of the things Francine does in some of her cards, not all of them, some of them, she includes a visualization, she calls it. And so for this card, for the Dodecahedron, she says that we can visualize this unity by looking at the image. We take a deep breath in and experience the feeling of oneness within our being. Visualize what this unity will look like in your present life and how the shift you are making will aid all of humanity in the intentional evolution from polarity consciousness to unity consciousness. And she says to hold this image in your heart and feel your emotional truth in the shift. So just taking that nice deep breath in, and on the exhale, as you're looking at the dodecahedron and turning your thoughts to unity consciousness. Yeah, because this is about divine thought. And she's also asking us to quiet our minds and ask ourselves whether the effect of conflict or are serving a purpose, or whether they are perhaps a lesson asking us to learn how to resolve differences and return to harmony. So, is there a conflict that serves a purpose? That serves a purpose. Good morning, Mary. I had to stop and while I was drinking my first cup of coffee, I was thinking about that. Is there a conflict that serves a purpose? And I wanted to say, no, there isn't. And my team said, just a minute, spend a little time on it. Has there ever been a conflict that serves a purpose? And I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me, but there may perhaps be a kind of conflict that serves a purpose. And that is when we stand in our truth. And there may be some people around us who disagree with that truth. and will say things about you or to you to try to move you off from your truth. In essence, that is a conflict. We may not be adding to that conflict per se, like as in an argument kind of way, but because we are standing in our truth, and I would like to put in a kind way, right? That it doesn't matter how kind you are. There's some people that will not accept that kindness. And and sometimes it's family members. Sometimes it's people that you thought were very close to you, and then the truth gets revealed, right? A truth gets revealed is that the way that you defined your relationship is different than the way that they looked at it. And so there's a truth that kind of floats to the surface, all because you stood in your truth. And in a way, that is a conflict. Now, I would rather take the position as like, no, there is not a conflict that serves a purpose. But perhaps there is. Perhaps. Hey, good morning, Julie. Julie Fortino. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your last name right. Shurdiff? I hope that's right. Duality in some ways means balance, balancing of the truth of the light and the dark. Not sure if that makes sense. I think it's our journey. It's our experience to getting to the balance. Because in order for us to recognize the balance, I think this is what you're saying, to recognize the balance, we have to experience the imbalance so that we can learn whatever lesson it is around that to come to balance. Margaret saying, it's funny, I did a meditation today and I was visiting in space and heard fifth dimension for where I was, and now I turned into your show. Hey, that's good, Margaret. I'm so glad you did. And Mary said, perhaps a question and learn. Perhaps to question and learn. Yes. Margaret saying, I truly believe we need conflict, just like light and dark and light, to see the contrast. I do. Because sometimes we do need that. It has to. Sometimes it has to reach our mental mind, because our mental mind is constantly looking for logic and an understanding. And sometimes that's the only way that we can bring ourselves back into center, right? Yeah. And when we were doing the Sacred Path cards, and there was the card Counting Coup. Do you remember that one? Counting Coup was about, in the old days, in our ancient Native American ancestors, they would come very close to their enemy, their opponent. Not to kill them, but to come as close as they possibly could and survive. That was a major feat. That was a major bravery. It took courage. And it even took more courage if you could touch them or to neutralize them in a way that this is where, taking their horses or capturing their wife or something like that. But in modern day, who is our strongest opponent? It's our shadow self. And so Counting Coup in modern day is about facing your fears, facing the dark side of yourself, and to neutralize that opponent. That's Counting Coup. That's bravery. And so we can't dismiss the darkness, because if we dismiss the darkness, we don't totally recognize the light. I know, but I think that's part of our journey here on Earth. I really do. It's about the balance. It's the balancing the head and the heart. It's that journey from the east to the west on the medicine wheel. Those are my thoughts anyway. Okay, so that's the dodecahedron. And remember, when we're talking about the sacred geometry, that frequency lies in the sixth dimension. That is the dimension that when we say, I'm going to send it out to the universe and see what the universe will bring back to me. That's where we're sending it, is the sixth dimension. It is where things, air quotes, manifest. It's the void. There's a definition of the void, and that is where all things come from and are formless. And so when we make our desires known, when we make our prayers, our wishes, our hopes, and our thoughts, it begins with a thought, and then our emotions come behind it to fuel it. Yeah, that's where we're sending it. Out to the platonic solids, and the platonic solids are the building blocks of all life. And everything has consciousness, right? Mary's saying, there may first be a conflict within yourself when you must decide what your truth or a truth is, then to decide to not be afraid to stand up for your truth or the truth, to potentially face outside conflict. Well put. Well put, Mary. Exactly. That's what I was just saying. Yep. It's that we have to find our own truth first before we can stand in it. If we don't really know what our truth is, we're kind of wobbly in it, and it's easy to get pushed over. It's easy to have somebody change your mind. With that said, I think that there's room, there has to be room in that to have an open mind and an open heart so that you can hear the sacred point of view of others. So that if necessary, we can make our own adjustments when necessary. Yeah. I know. It's kind of like sometimes it reminds me of smoke. It's like, all right, I think I understand this, and you go to grab it and it kind of dissipates. It's like, oh, I thought I had it. But I think that's part of our soul growth. I do. All right. So the first card, the dodecahedron, when it was drawn, it was the first card, and it came out on the right-hand side. And the right-hand side is about thought and about male energy, and the female side is on the left side. And so this is what came for the female side. Calm within. Just take a look at that image. Calm within. Do you see near her dantian, the solar plexus area? It is a lotus flower. And the root of the lotus flower goes all the way down and touches the earth. Straighten it out here. Calm within. Yeah. And up near her head, if you look at it, up near above her waist, let's put it that way, and around her head are storm clouds, lightning bolts. Yeah, the calm within. It means inner peace. And Francine writes that this card speaks to the ongoing process of returning to our calm within. Your life is likely filled with many wondrous things. Many wondrous things. That she's talking about life. This is where our family, our friends, our job, our career, our neighborhood, the outside world, our life, and what affects the flow of our life. And she says sometimes it's overstimulating. She says, occasionally you experience periods when all the many things that compose daily life accumulate and become more than you can handle. This creates frustration and anxiety and disrupts the flow of positive creative energy. I'm going to go out on a branch here and say, I think we all have experienced that at some point when we get overwhelmed with our daily life. And many times, it's self-inflicted. We talked about this at one point, is about productivity and work ethic and the belief system behind that. And some of it has to do with boundaries too, because how many times have we said yes to something when there's no way we should put more on our plate? And we say yes anyway. I know I've done it. In the past, I have done that. And still today, on occasion, I'll still do that. It depends on what the other person is going through. If somebody is really, really on the edge, and if they, you can see it in their eyes, if they just had one more thing go wrong, it's going to push them over the edge, and so if I can, I will be able to help them somehow and take the time to do that. But it is also about boundaries, about being able to say no and mean no. And so that you don't put more on your plate, on your platter, on the many plates that we have spinning, right? Yeah, I think we all do that. This card is definitely about taking that into consideration and being honest with ourselves and saying, yep, that's me. I do that. I know exactly what that frustration feels like. I know that I have created that frustration by taking on more than I should have. Yeah, one more project. Paul used to joke around with me, and in some ways, it is a truth. He used to say to me, he says, number one, you're not happy unless you have 10 different projects going on at one time. You're bored otherwise. And there is some truth to that. I had to learn about my addiction to adrenaline. I love the feeling of when there's a very new project. And it doesn't matter what kind. When I worked for the state, and being put on a project and it was brand new, there was this feeling of excitement about it, right? That you're actually bringing something brand new into the world. And so there's this adrenaline kick to it. And so part of that was the reason for having so many different projects going at one time. Now, with experience, with age, I have learned how to master that. Let's put it that way. I don't have 10 projects going on all at one time. I have maybe a couple big projects going on at one time. And not a bunch of little ones, right? And learning how to say no. And also being open to things shifting. So you're being removed or taken away from something that you thought you were going to be a part of. Yeah. That's a whole lesson in itself, and the ego thing. The ego thing. One pops to mind automatically, is being removed from a position when you haven't really done anything. And it's like, well, wait, why? Wait, and no, I hadn't even considered that. They were telling me that I was too busy. And chances are that they were seeing something that I wasn't seeing. Now, I sound calmer about it because this was a few years ago. Well, actually, not even a few. It's been 2 years. Maybe it's been a year. Time is a funny thing. But anyway, enough time has elapsed that I can sit back and I look at that and think, oh, you know what? That was a gift that didn't seem like a gift at the time. But in the long run, not being in that energy field was the best thing for me. And so accepting that and realizing like, phew, I don't have to be responsible for that piece. I don't have the responsibility of someone else's business, Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So when life leads us in the direction where we don't have that inner calmness, that inner peace, right? Now Francine says, she writes that she has this little exercise, is that ask that everyday cares leave your mind for just long enough so you can find the calm within that nurtures you, who you truly are. So when you look at an image like this, and you just take a nice deep breath in, and then when the exhaling is noticing what it feels like inside of you. Do you feel that inner calmness, that inner peace? And if you don't, is to be able to relax and find that, locate, because it's still there, is locate it. Where is it in your body? Where is it in your being? Because it's covered up right now, right? Because it's still there. We all have it. And to recognize, to remember that feeling. And that's just taking the moment to do that. Now, some people in my world would say, let's get grounded, let's get centered, let's take a few deep breaths, get calming breaths. Some people would do spherical breathing, the equal in and out, get connected to Grandmother Earth and feel what's really there. We talked about this too with, I can't remember, I think it was the South Shield. It was about innocence and our inner child. That is still there. Our innocence is still there. Our inner calm is still there. It may be covered up with debris. It may be covered up with traumas, but it's still there. And when we take that moment to center, that moment to turn our thoughts to that part of us and recognize it and realize that it's still there. And it just a moment. It doesn't mean that you have to be in meditation for an hour. It would be nice. But, you just take a moment to feel it and know that it's still there. Even though you may have a whole bunch of everyday kind of stuff over the top of it, or, other debris. other interference. And those interferences and debris are the things that we heal. Yeah, that we heal and bring to a resolution of some sort, the healing aspect of it. Yep. But that is inner calm, inner peace, the calm within. Yeah. I don't know. That was kind of a deep message for a morning like this, but I have to say that there was pieces in there that I had said, yep, I feel that. I get that. And especially the one part about that paradigm shift is, let's look at and talk about, use language consciously, making that shift from duality in our languages and our thoughts to that of wholeness and unity. That yes, we're here on earth. Earth is our life. Our earth walk is to teach us about wholeness and unity. Yeah. I'm not gonna call Earth the school of duality anymore. Yeah. Hi, Susan. Susan Stark. I'm so glad you're here. I'm looking at the time. I want to end a little bit earlier today because we have Polly Joe's show coming up at noon Eastern, and I want to give you guys enough time to be able to get something to drink, go to the bathroom, and join Polly Joe. That would be nice if you could. She is talking about the transcendental heart. I think that's the name of it. Here, wait, I've got her thing right here. Yep, transcendental heart. She says, reaching a fuller vibration necessitates the expansion of your higher self and the heart. Yeah. So awakening the potential that lies within. Hey, that lies within. So she's coming up at noon. You can join me this evening for Communications from Home at 8 p.m. Eastern. My guest is Minnie Kansman. Minnie is starting a brand new column in Star Nations magazine, and I want to interview her about that and the backstory to Nature Adventures. That's also the name of our new live stream show on the third Thursday of the month. But her new column comes out in the August issue of Star Nations magazine. And so I wanted to have her on so that she could share with us her story, her journey to making this change, and what does that mean for her? What does that mean? I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised with that. Yeah. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And please, anything that you heard today that we talked about, that we shared, if it resonated with you, yay, grab onto it. See how it unfolds for you today. Notice if you're a participant or are bearing witness to it. And if it didn't resonate, that's okay too. Just let it go. It wasn't for you. Maybe it was just planting seeds, or better still, maybe you're the messenger. Maybe you get to share the link to the recorded show with somebody that you know, that you feel like, oh, they would like this information. Maybe you're the messenger, right? It's all good. So until tomorrow, we'll do the card draw for tomorrow morning. And with that, Bama Mina, Bama Mina, which in Potawatomi means until we see each other again. Have a good day, everybody.